I'm MichaelVickers. I'm an artist and co-director of Akin.
How are you feeling about the eviction now that it's kind of happened and you've moved here?
Yeah. To be honest, I've been quite lonely up here on the third floor. I mean, I think I could see this happening, but I didn't realize, how much a part of my daily process, even though I had a separate studio with Oliver, I would still come in the morning, dump my stuff in my studio, and then instantly go into Akin to see who was around and what people were doing, the same way any other Akin member sort of would. So really realizing how that first floor studio was just, in my mind, a bit of an extension of the space that I was working in, where some might think they were kind of separate. So I've missed that. I've missed, there are often days where I'll come up into the building, come up here on the third floor, literally be on my own all day. So I think that was tough. Oliver being away, having a baby, he's taken a couple months off as well. So also not having Oliver to kind of turn to and like crack a joke to. And that's obviously such a big part of Akin, is having other people to crack jokes with and eat lunch with and that sort of thing. So it's been a good reminder, like the importance of community and how much more Akin is than just like plywood walls. The problem of Akin is that we've grown very organically, and there's no sort of plan. And so then what gets lost in that plan, and a terrible thing to lose, would be that community aspect. And that's sort of something that we're really focused on. How do you make sure that happens? And different spaces have different people in it, so some are naturally better at sort of that. The energy is just different in each one. Lansdowne had probably the best of that sort of vibe, and that's just, who knows, different forces attract different sort of forces. But that's a big part of, our focus as Akin grows is not just adding another new studio and adding another one, and without sort of thinking, okay, but like, what is that space like? So it's been a good reminder of that. Good reminder for me that I don't like working on my own. Like, I do like being in a space where other people are around, so making sure that, it's been great having Mike up here, and it's also amazing. It shows you how two people can work in a space together. You just can instantly become friends. Mike and I have become very good friends just from naturally spending so much time together, and that's been interesting to see too. And that's, I think, with Akin, it's like that, but with 8 people, and then, and that's pretty amazing. But it's been a good reminder for me about how I need to work around other people, because it's, I think, part of why it's felt very much like a job these last few months being involved with Akin is because it has been very little of the social side and a very lot of like my keyboard and like doing emails. Without somebody to distract you, you easily can just sit at the screen and keep working, right?
Yeah, I was wondering about the physical layout too, if you think about what Lansdowne had compared to what other spaces maybe don't have.
Yeah.
And how maybe that can be planned in.
I mean, it's one really tough thing, I think, is that with Akin trying to be as affordable as we are, we can't afford to just give up a big chunk of space for like a living room, which is what we would love. Like, ideally, if we could get rent so cheap that we could afford to do it, we would have a giant pool table and couches and a larger, better kitchen and, like way more of that communal space. The way things are set right now, it's just that like, we can't really afford to do that because that could be 3 artists, and when our profit margin is so slim, we just don't have the room for that. Thanks to amazing people like Alan, who sort of say, within my space, I'm going to create some room for that, which is amazing. But yeah, it is true that, spaces that have less of that communal sort of energy, because there's less space for people to like hang out. And you saw actually in Lansdowne, as people were leaving, Alan's sort of communal space spread out actually, and so like as soon as there was an empty space, we would be like, oh, let's bring in another couch, and let's bring in, and because we liked having that area to hang out in, so like, I could totally imagine in Akin one day where it does have that, maybe it's a whole other room. I mean, that, and you start getting into like, I can also imagine Akin has a daycare, and I can imagine one that has bedrooms on the 2nd floor and a garden on the roof and like blah 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 blah. But again, we're just not quite there yet. We can see it.
So do you feel that you have gained anything in this move? I think I think you've kind of outlined things that have been lost.
Yeah.
For sure, things that you miss from the other space. Do you think there's any benefit that you've gained?
Yes, I mean, I think we've learned to actually move, which we've always said, like, oh yeah, when we have to move, we'll just pack it all up, and having actually done that more than once now, we've gotten a bit better at it. And so that's a positive, just learning how to move, which every move will get better. I think in my confidence on like the akin side of things has grown, because I've had to be like, well, I'm gonna just make this executive decision to like say yes to this, or like doing a lot more of the aspects of the job which before we would either ask our lawyer or I would expect Oliver to know, like boring lease stuff that maybe I'd be like, oh, I don't know how to do that and I don't do that. I'm just like, well, I'm gonna figure it out, and sort of learning by doing and getting more confident. On my own art career side, like there haven't been many positives.
No time.
Yeah, and so my career has always been like waves. Like I focus and put a wave of energy towards it. One amazing thing has been becoming friends, even more so with Mike, now collaborating on making new things, and then that is like a new project. So that's something that's really exciting that's come out of it. Yeah, I mean, moving is always going to suck, and I think that is there's no getting around that. Like, it's never fun to have to pack up things and uproot, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I feel like that from my own personal life experience, having lived in like 20 different places. You just get used to it a little bit, and I'm not saying that we have to get used to always moving all the time, but when it starts being like, well, that's the only way that we'll get to have a nice, cheap studio in downtown Toronto, and we kind of learn as we go, Ideally, that space then also has a daycare and is giving you affordable housing next door, and has a theater in it and has a recording studio for the musicians, and we're very we have lots of Google Drives of all of those things. It's just like when the time comes to actually be able to make use of that knowledge, I guess.